This is Steve Schiffman, and I want to thank you very much for joining me today in this webinar podcast that we try to put out every single day for you as a salesperson and for you as a sales manager. I'm going to talk today about how to rank your prospects. You know, prospecting or understanding where your prospects are in the pipeline is an indicator and predictor of your success. If you don't know how things will flow through, if you can't look at something, a particular prospect, a particular project, and understand what's the likelihood of it closing, you're just dreaming sometimes that maybe it'll close. For example, just play this out and you'll understand. You go and see somebody new. Let's say it's a new person. For whatever reason, you got the appointment. And by the way, don't go into this thing, well, they gave me the appointment because they're really interested, because frankly, they may not have. You may just have been good at getting an appointment. So you've got the appointment, you go meet the person, and at the end, they say, well, this is great. Let's talk again in 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years. Doesn't really matter. And you go, oh, yeah, that's great. I'll call you back. And they go, yeah, oh, yeah, do that. And you leave and you call them the next day and the day after and the day after, and this doesn't happen. You'll say to me privately, well, it went dead, it went quiet, but it didn't happen. And so you still rank it in your CRM, because that's where you put these things. And you say, well, you know, Steve, I think that I've got a really good chance of doing. The guy was really interested, the woman was really interested. And so you'll count it at a 25 or 50% or even 90%. I've had people tell me, well, it's a 90%. They really need me. Here's the reality. You have nothing. You have nothing. The objective of the first step in sales is to get to the next step. You have nothing when you don't have a next step. I don't care what you tell me. I don't care how you say it to me. If you don't have a next step with a prospect, whatever that next step is, and it could be a phone call, I'll go with that, as long as the phone call is with a reasonable period of time. You can't say to me, well, I'm going to call the guy in 6 years, and that's okay. That's not real. Well, he's really interested. What does that mean? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. So you have to be your own manager at this point and say to yourself, this has got a chance of closing, but I don't have a next step. I have no reason to think it's going to close. So therefore, you have to think about that, and you have to evaluate what's the proposition. Why should the person buy from you? Just because you think they need it? Yeah, everybody could use your services, I guess. But the reality is it's not going to happen that way. So let's go through some things about understanding, prospecting, and ranking. But here's the thing and the issue that I think we all face. Because we have these CRMs that everybody has decided to put in. And it doesn't matter where you are, you've got something that you're using, some automatic thing. You don't really get a chance to look at it that way. You don't get a spreadsheet, put it out. I mean, a spreadsheet is usually, you know, just what it is, a spreadsheet, but it's not the details of it until you go into the details. But then by the time you get into it, you got to enter something else, and so you got to enter, so you never quite get there. Follow? I hope so. So let's think about this for a second. You meet somebody, right? And you have a good meeting. Good meeting means you get the next step. So think about what your next step is. Let me tell you what mine is. When I meet with somebody for the first time, at the end of the meeting, I say, listen, I'll tell you what I want to do. Let me go back to my office and think through what we've discussed today. And then let me come back next week. Now look what I'm doing now. Let me come back next week and show you my thinking. That is a kind of an outline-ish thing. Now, they can only say two things to that. They can say, yes, that's a good idea. Or they can say, no, I'm not interested. But I need to know that. Because if they're not going to let me come back with this outline-ish thing, which is really just a page of thoughts about how we do the programs, then the odds are it's not going to happen. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to happen that week, by the way. In other words, we could go 2 weeks out, but I want a real date, real time, real person. That's important. That's important. If I don't get that, then I don't even put that at a 25% column or beginning. I don't put that as anything. To me, it's nothing. If I meet with somebody and they say, oh, that's a great idea, why don't you call me about it? I don't put that any place because there's nothing to put. Well, what am I going to put now? Call him? I know that, and you know that. I went to see somebody who was a client of mine, person selling, woman selling, and I forget the product, doesn't really matter, but she's selling, and she said to me, well, this is what I do. I put down all my follow-up calls in my Outlook calendar. I said, okay, so let me see it. And she put it up. And I said, okay, now show me the appointments that you have. Well, I've got a lot of calls. No, let me see the appointments you have that you're actually going to go follow up. And she goes on the second appointment. Let me just see those. Well, I don't have any. I got this 1, 2 weeks from now. So all these calls that she makes continuously lead really to nothing. If that's you, then you want to avoid that. You want to avoid that. And you might want to rethink your sales approach. I've got a client not far from here that interesting. They have a product where for the construction industry, they go in and see the general manager of a construction site. And they say, you know, we have this product, and the person says, hey, that's good. And he'll say, or she'll say, let me see it. And they demonstrate how it works. And then they'll go, okay, that's good. Give me a quote. And they come back and tell me, well, they're giving him a quote or her a quote. And I go, well, that's good. And what's going to happen? Oh, no. See, this is going to close. All these quotes will close. Well, no, they're not. Statistically, I know that it takes about 20 quotes to make a sale, 20. But they're counting on every one. They can't. First of all, you couldn't do it. You couldn't do the work. That's number one. But number two, it's not going to happen that way. But they think it's going to happen. So they have everything ranked equally. So therefore, they can't really predict or project their income. You should be able to predict your income easily. You should be able to look at what you have in terms of your prospects and where they're ranked and understand what that means to you. If that is not happening, then you probably don't have that much. And let's just talk about what that much is, because that much is kind of important. How many first appointments do you have right now? Whether it's a phone call, that is a scheduled meeting, webinar, or an actual appointment where you're going to see somebody. If you don't have 5 every week, 5 every week, you're probably not doing well. You need to have 5 new appointments every single week, which means the following week, you're going to have 3 or 4 carried over and 5 new. Follow? So therefore, it's 7 or 8 a week appointments. That's what you really need. If you're not doing that, if you have big gaps of time where there's really no appointments, then you probably don't have a lot of prospects. And remember, the prospects are going to produce your income 3 or 4 or 5 weeks from today. Because there are 2 things that I always emphasize. One is you have to have steps. There are real steps to selling. The time frame says that you're going to have or run out of time. The sale will take, or sale is the length of the normal sales cycle. So you need to consider that. My machine just froze. That's why I lost you for a second. But you need to think about that. You need to consider the steps of your sale and the time frame. What's your sales cycle? The longer your sales cycle is out of its normal sales cycle, the less likely it is to happen. Anyway, this is Steve Schiffman. I want to thank you for joining me today. And by the way, you can see the sun is coming in, so it's getting to be lighter outside and getting to be warmer. I want to thank you for joining me. And I tell you this every time. If you have interest in talking about what you're doing in your sales because it's not clicking the way you want it to do, just write me. Write me. Tell me, hey, I could do it. And I'll do a little Zoom conference with you. I don't mind that. Okay? Don't forget, okay, S. Schiffman at steveschiffman.com. This is Steve Schiffman. I want to thank you very much for joining me. And as always, your participation humbles me.